Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. So, look, if you're serious about building muscle, you've probably heard a million different theories on how you're supposed to train. But today, we're unpacking a legendary, science-backed system that honestly completely revolutionized strength training. It's called the POF method, which stands for positions of flexion. Originally developed by Steve Holman back in the 1990s, and now heavily validated by modern sports science, this explainer is going to be your ultimate guide to demystifying POX so you can finally break through those frustrating muscle-building limits.
Let me just ask you right off the bat, are you stuck in a muscle-building plateau right now? Trust me, we've literally all been there. You're hitting the gym consistently, you're putting in the sweat equity, but the tape measure just isn't moving anymore. It's incredibly frustrating when simply piling more and more weight on the bar stops producing new muscle growth. You see, your body has adapted to your routine, and it's basically begging you for a totally new stimulus.
And that brings us to a massive paradigm shift. Think about the old way of training. This is where most of us get trapped, just chasing heavier weights on a single repetitive exercise. Sure, you're going to build some strength that way, but it leaves these massive gaps in your overall muscle development. The POF way, on the other hand, shifts the focus entirely. The core philosophy here isn't just about lifting heavier. It's about stimulating a single muscle through its complete anatomical range of motion to maximize fiber recruitment. We want to attack that muscle from literally every conceivable angle.
So how exactly are we going to do that? Well, the POF method breaks down every single muscle group into 3 distinct phases of force generation: mid-range, stretch, and contracted. Think of this as your stealth agenda, your ultimate plateau-busting roadmap. By hitting a muscle in these 3 specific positions, in this exact sequence, we trigger 3 totally different biological signals for hypergrowth. Let's break these down one by one.
Starting off with phase 1, mid-range, building raw mass. This is the very first exercise you'll do in your workout, right when your central nervous system is fresh and your energy is at its absolute peak. Think of this phase as the bulldozer. Mid-range exercises are your heavy hitters. They rely on what we call compound synergy, meaning multiple muscle groups are working together as a team to move some massive weight. Because you've got all these helper muscles assisting the primary target, you can load the bar as heavily as possible. Physiologically, this recruits the maximum number of motor units and applies massive physical tension right into the muscle belly. So what does a bulldozer actually look like on the gym floor? Well, for your chest, it's the classic barbell bench press. For your legs, it's the squat. And for your back, we're talking pull-ups or heavy rows. These compound movements provide that heavy, raw physical tension you absolutely need to create foundational muscle bulk. You're quite literally bulldozing those muscle fibers into adapting and growing thicker. Next up, we move into the second phase, stretch, the growth multiplier. This right here is the absolute secret weapon of the POF system, and modern sports science is just now proving how incredibly effective this specific phase is for rapid, explosive growth. Let's talk about the science for a second. We're aiming for something called stretch-mediated hypertrophy. I know, it sounds super technical, but the concept is actually pretty simple. By forcing a muscle to stretch under a heavy load, you cause a massive amount of mechanical damage. And even wilder, research shows this can promote a process called sarcomerogenesis, which essentially means the muscle builds new units in series. So you aren't just making the muscle fibers thicker, you're literally forcing them to become longer. To really understand how this works mechanically, just think of a rubber band. When you rapidly stretch a muscle under load, your body's nervous system actually panics a little bit. It triggers this natural defense mechanism called the myotatic reflex, or the stretch reflex, just to prevent the muscle from tearing. And what happens? This reflex forces dormant, lazy muscle fibers, the ones that didn't even wake up during the bulldozer phase, to suddenly activate and contract. You're waking up fibers you didn't even know you had. The crucial point here is finding exercises that put maximum tension on the muscle right when it's fully elongated. For the chest, that's dumbbell flies. For the quads, it's the sissy squat. And for the biceps, you're looking at the inclined dumbbell curl. But hey, I have to give a really quick warning here. Because the muscle is deeply stretched and in a super vulnerable state, you absolutely must control the weight. Do not bounce, do not use momentum, otherwise you really risk a serious injury. Focus on a deep, controlled, and super safe stretch. Finally, we hit the third and final phase, contracted, the chemical pump. Okay, so your muscles are already super fatigued, they've been physically overloaded, they've been deeply stretched, and now we finish them off with a highly satisfying, intense burn. I love this visual metaphor, the sponge. In a contracted exercise, your main goal is peak contraction, literally squeezing the muscle at the very top of the movement.
When you hold that squeeze, your muscle acts just like a sponge, literally wringing the blood out and restricting new oxygen from entering. This creates massive metabolic stress, a huge buildup of lactic acid, and triggers an incredible release of anabolic growth hormones. We're attacking muscle growth chemically now.
To actually get that sponge effect, you need continuous tension right at the peak of the movement. Free weights tend to lose tension at the top, which is exactly why cables or machines are going to be your best friends for this phase. For your chest, cable crossovers are perfect. For your quads, use leg extensions. And for your biceps, the good old-fashioned concentration curl. You just want to squeeze hard at the top and fully embrace the burn to maximize that chemical pump.
Okay, let's talk about putting this into practice. Designing your POF workout. So we've got the theory down. Now you're probably asking the big question. How do I actually program this for my next gym session? Well, we can perfectly map out how these physiological goals logically stack together just using the chest as our main example. You start out with the mid-range bench press for synergy and raw power. Boom. Then you move right into the stretch phase with dumbbell flies to induce those micro tears and trigger the stretch reflex. And finally, you finish the routine with a contracted cable crossover to absolutely maximize your metabolic stress. It is a brilliant, complete 360-degree attack on the muscle.
Now, you might be sitting there thinking, this sounds like a massive, exhausting amount of volume. But honestly, here is the beauty of the POF method. Because this protocol is so incredibly intense, you only need about 6 total sets per muscle group. That's right, usually just 2 working sets per position. That's the whole shebang. If you push with true intensity across all 3 positions, 6 sets are way more than enough to force adaptation without overtraining and frying your nervous system.
Now let's turn things up a notch. Advanced plateau busting techniques.
So, what exactly happens when you've mastered the basic POF framework and you need an even bigger challenge? Let's dial up the energy and look at some highly advanced strategies from the creators of POF designed specifically to push you way past complete muscular failure. First up is a phenomenal technique called X-reps. This is all about pushing past failure. When you can no longer complete a full clean repetition, you don't just drop the weight, no way. Instead, you perform power partials, these tiny pulsing reps right at the turnaround point of the exercise. This is the exact spot where your muscle is semi-stretched and mechanically at its strongest. Banging out a few X-reps at the end of a set completely fries those stubborn, fast-twitch muscle fibers that usually refuse to give up.
And then we have the 4X mass workout. This is an incredible step-by-step method to pack on size without crushing your joints with ultra-heavy weights. Here's exactly how it works. First, you're going to pick a weight you could normally lift for about 15 reps, but you're only going to perform 4 sets of 10 reps. The catch? You have to be super strict and rest for only 30 to 40 seconds between sets. On that 4th and final set, you max it out to absolute, complete failure. This insanely high density and short rest period creates massive muscle expansion and gives you an unbelievable pump.
To wrap this all up today, the ultimate key to unlocking your true genetic potential is to master the triad: physical tension, mechanical damage, and metabolic stress. The POF method isn't just some random list of exercises. It's a scientifically optimized system to ensure that absolutely no muscle fiber gets left behind. Next time you hit the gym, try structuring your workout with a mid-range, a stretch, and a contracted movement. If this explainer helped you rethink your training and really understand the science of muscle growth, please do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. But before you go, I want to leave you with this one thought. If your muscles adapt entirely based on the specific angles of tension you expose them to, how much of your ultimate potential is currently lying dormant just because you've only been lifting in a straight line? Think about that before your next session. Keep learning, keep lifting, and I'll see you in the next explainer.